Most of you watching this video can probably remember a very specific day or a round or even a specific shot that completely hooked us on the sport of disc golf. And from that moment on, it's not uncommon to want to bring every single person in your life into the sport of disc golf to hopefully fall in love with it as much as you already have. With that said, when you bring new people along with you to the disc golf course, it's difficult to know how to teach them and what necessarily to teach them. And today, we're doing a different type of episode. I'm going to teach you how to teach new players to get into disc golf. Let's talk about it. Before you even get to the disc golf course to play, you have a decision to make, and that is, what discs do you set up these new players with? There are so many discs to choose from, different plastics, different weights, different speeds. What is the best for a new player to start out with? It really depends on what they want out of disc golf. If they're hyper competitive and they want to throw what the professionals are throwing, give them whatever disc that they want. Let them figure it out. Part of the beauty of disc golf is the self-discovery element of it. But if there's certain players that want that green light of success right away, they want to throw straight, they want to stay in the fairway, there are so many discs on the market advertised as beginner friendly. At the end of the day, while beginner friendly discs do provide that green light of success early, they do have their limitations on how they scale when the player does learn proper mechanics and begins to throw with more of their entire body. Once you get to the disc golf course and you're ready to take these new players out for their first round, it's important to know what these players want out of disc golf. Pay very close attention and read the room. The beautiful thing about disc golf is you can take it as seriously or as casually as you want. If you're playing with someone new who really does want to learn the game from a technical side and wants to learn proper throwing mechanics, there are some big picture items that you should pay attention to first, rather than inundating them with lots of information from every YouTube video you've watched. So here are a few big things that I've noticed new players do when they start playing disc golf for the first time. When it comes to the upper body, the two main throwing styles of new players that I've seen that cause the classic mistakes are, one, holding onto the disc with two hands and swooping the disc way up over their shoulders and sometimes above their head to throw the disc, and two, curling up the disc really, really tight and then crossing this other arm forward, never turning the shoulders to throw. So they'll extend and they'll throw like this. Both of these mistakes and these natural inclinations are common because throwing a toy frisbee allows you to do that. Toy frisbees are way slower, they're way glidier, they don't need to be thrown with the entire body, and you can actually throw them pretty far and straight, throwing like both of those ways I just showed you. So even if someone grew up throwing frisbee all the time, they can get into some really weird habits that don't allow you to throw a golf disc very well. So there's some things they have to unlearn. So if a player is doing one of these things and wants to learn how to throw a little bit farther and use more of their body, the big thing to tell them is, number one, if they're doing this, take this off arm off the disc. It's going to feel really weird and really uncomfortable, but over time they'll figure it out once they get more reps in. But even if you don't have them actively engaging their off arm, if it just hangs down at their side right now, that's a great start for them as they move forward. Next, you have to get them turning their shoulders when they throw. That's the biggest one that causes some fear because they have a tendency to want to face their target with their whole body as much as possible. And when they're going like this, they're not turning their shoulders at all, but it's much easier to throw like that initially because they don't have this variable to worry about. But if they do want to learn how to throw farther, you have to teach them when that final step is happening, they turn their shoulders and rotate everything when they're throwing. So now that they know that they're supposed to turn their shoulders through the entire shot, you can now show them what the arm is actually supposed to do. So instead of going up here or curling really tight, you can show them that the disc can eventually extend straight. The big thing that can actually fix some of these problems is to first tell them to pay attention to where their elbow crease is facing. So a lot of new players, they'll tighten everything up and they'll keep their elbows very close to their body when they're throwing. And what that does is it creates a position where the forearm is extending downwards, and for them to want to throw, they have to do rounding. They have to do that thing that everyone says is a no-no in the disc golf world because it prevents this forearm from extending when we throw. So the best way to communicate that is to just say, hey, instead of your elbow crease facing upwards, when you're throwing, make sure the elbow crease is facing out or towards you. That way it forces them to kind of pronate their arm, pronate their hand, and get that elbow off their side. So now it's rotating with their shoulders while they're throwing, and it's keeping the disc on a much flatter plane. And it's gonna let them enjoy the game of disc golf so much more because that fundamental component will scale with them for the rest of their life. So going back to what I was saying about the disc dumping really heavy on hyzer out of the flight for a new player. This is something that all new players deal with most of the time, and they complain about it. It's very frustrating that the disc doesn't stop going in that direction, and it's likely because of the issues that I just explained. This also can serve as a great opportunity to educate this new player on the fundamental components of the flight of a disc. So you can tell them in this way to get them to at least understand it and then begin learning from there. The disc, when given enough time to run out of speed, will fade in the opposite direction that it's spinning. So if a disc is spinning clockwise, it's going to naturally want to fade to the left. If a disc is spinning counterclockwise, it's going to want to naturally fade to the right. You can tell them that because of this, they can prolong that fade by, instead of throwing the disc up and letting it crash on that angle, they can try to practice curving the disc with the spin. So for a righty backhand, that's curving it to the right. Lefty backhand, that's curving it to the left. And I'm saying curving it to the left, curving it to the right, because in the beginning, the players don't want to hear anhyzer and hyzer. Eventually, they'll learn those terms, but they just need good imagery to create these flights. You can tell them that real distance comes from letting the disc turn with the spin and then eventually running out of speed and then dumping on that natural fade. If the player is having trouble with the coordination between the footwork and the upper body, it's totally okay to tell them to just stand still on the tee pad and practice throwing with those new movements with the shoulders and the arm. They will be so surprised after a while at how far and straight they throw, just if they have the upper body position nailed down. But with that, if you have someone that just really loves failing forward and wants to try everything right away, you can teach them some basic footwork as well. So let's get into that. So for the footwork, new players tend to do one of two things. The first one is probably the most common. People have a natural inclination in disc golf to face the target as long as possible before they throw, especially new players. Why? They're afraid of spraying it. They want to see where they're going. They don't want to turn their body. That's a very scary place to be if you aren't used to throwing a disc. So what you'll see when they're learning footwork, or at least trying it, is this reverse X step. They'll take their front foot, and then instead of crossing the back foot behind, they're gonna cross the back foot in front and prevent their hips from turning away, and then they'll try to throw like that. And you see this so often, and it's completely understandable. And if you're trying to teach somebody for the first time, this is one of the first things you should pay attention to, is if they're doing the reverse X step. The other thing that I see from players that are brand new is the opposite. They want to really rip the disc, so they turn backwards and they do this sort of reverse Fred Flintstone footwork, where they back up the tee pad like that and try to throw it from there. And you know what? They might be able to throw really hard with that. At least they're throwing their full body weight into the shot. But again, their accuracy will be abysmal, and they'll get into some really bad habits over time. So the same drill to work on the reverse X step is the same drill to fix the other type of footwork. and that is that side shuffle drill. It is hands down the easiest way to teach footwork to a new player. I have taught this to young children and they've picked it up very quickly. So even players that are playing tournaments now that have trouble with their footwork, it's a great way to reset and get back into the proper mechanics of the footwork. And for new players, I found it to be flawless in teaching that. The last thing with footwork that you need to pay attention to with new players is their back foot being anchored to the ground when they throw. A lot of people will take even a good set of footwork, and then when they throw, they'll just leave this back foot here. They'll anchor it to the ground because they're afraid of getting their whole body through the shot. The big thing to tell them is to, yes, make sure you throw the disc first and that you're not spinning while you're throwing, but throw the disc first and then let your shoulders and your leg get all the way through the shot. That will unlock an incredible amount of power, and it also straightens the disc out a little bit. When you throw and you're anchored back here, it kind of pops the nose up naturally because you're kind of falling back, and that can also aid in the disc dumping into the ground. So again, follow through with the shoulders clearing all the way through and then letting that back leg get through will really take that new player's throw to the next level, and that can really start making the game fun for them. Okay, so a quick recap. First off, when you have new players coming with you to the disc golf course, keep it simple if you're teaching them the game for the first time. Don't bombard them with information. Give them some solid fundamentals to work off of and let them enjoy the game. And remember, the self-discovery aspect of this sport is what keeps people coming back. So, like every other sport, keep it from the ground up. Work on their fundamentals of footwork and then move up to the shoulders and then work on the positioning of the arm. If you can just get those elements going, they will really have a good foundation to begin learning the sport of disc golf and then making some strides on their own when they begin falling in love just like you did. For even more content and information, make sure to watch this same episode on the Disc Golf Network. Thank you so much for tuning in again. Make sure to leave a comment down below. Let us know what you struggled with when you started playing disc golf for the first time, and we will catch you next time.